Hello again, welcome back. Here we are to talk about JavaScript and continue studying the date object. And we're solving some problems with dates. And we've done the first two challenges. Let's do challenge number 3. So challenge number 3 is a function called nextDate. It takes an array of dates and it wants to look at that array and figure out which of those dates happen next. Okay, so it should be a date that's, in the future from right now when the function is called. Okay, so how are we going to solve that? Let's give it a try here. So what we should probably do is we should probably loop over the dates here until we find one that is greater than the current date. So that means we need to know what the current date is. So let's make a constant here and call it now. So that's right now. And we'll say new date. Okay. And then we're going to use a for loop here. And we could use for each to loop over dates, but for each you can't quit early. So what I want to do is I want to loop over all the dates here, right? And if I find a date that's greater than now, then I want to quit the whole function and return it. So actually that makes up a good question. What if none of these dates are in the future? What does this function return? Maybe we should, we'll put that down here. We'll say return false. I don't know, right? Or we could do return undefined or something. I don't know, right? But maybe that'll be okay. But if we don't get to this, we're going to return a date, okay? So let's say let I equal 0 while I is less than dates.length, and then we'll say I plus equals 1. Okay, so again, we're not using for each here because you can't quit for each early, okay, or not easily anyway. But with a for loop, we can just, if we return, it just stops the function, doesn't continue looping, and it's done. Okay, you can also break, right? So so now let's figure out if our dates are greater than now. So what we'll do is we'll ask the question. We'll say, hey, if well, let's actually get that date first. So let's say const date equals dates bracket I. So now we've got our date, right? So let's say, hey, if date is greater than now, remember they're numeric, right? So in this case we can compare them numerically. So if this date is larger than this one, then it happens in the future, okay? And in that case we want to return it. So return date. Okay, great. So here's our next date function, and it's got today, the due date, the start date, your birthday, and the new year in it. And let's figure out which one of those happens next. So I'm gonna say const problem3 equals the next date, and then because we're gonna return the date, and then we'll log it. So let's say console log problem3. So we'll run our code in the console and see what happens. So what do we have here? So it looks like problem 3 here, we've got 2021 February. And if I look at my problem number 2 here, you can see that the present date is 2021 January 29th, and then the next date in the future is 2021 February. So that looks correct because then the last date is 2022, right? Actually, I realized we have one problem here is if the dates are in the wrong order, we might get the wrong answer. Let's improve our solution. It worked here, but I realized like if these dates were not in the same order, then we would have a problem. So let's sort them first. If we had written the previous solution, the sorting function, as a separate function, we could call that function, right? But we'll just rewrite the code here. So let's say const new array equals dates dot. Actually, let's call this new dates equals dates dot sort, and we'll sort our dates A and B, and then we'll say return A minus B. So that should sort our dates. Now that I'm using new dates here, I got to make sure that I'm going to loop over new dates down here and then get new dates here, right? And so that looks pretty good. So let's, yeah, so I think that's a good improvement, right? So we're going to sort the dates first, put them all in order, and then loop over each one until we find the one that's greater than now, right? Let's check our code again, make sure we didn't make any errors. So I'm going to clear the console and run the code one more time. Okay, so we got the same answer here, so that's good, right? I think we would have got maybe potentially gotten the wrong answer if this date had come before the other one, right? I feel like if I had put this one before the due date, or yeah, this due date right here, then we might have seen an error here. Okay, so anyway, so there's that solution. Let's talk about the stretch challenge. So the stretch challenge here is return a human readable string that says your next appointment is in 3 days or 2 months or 1 year or whatever it is, right? We won't get too granular. Let's just do years, months, and days, okay? So how would we do that, right? So why don't we do this? If we found the date right here, what we want to do is maybe find the difference in years, the difference in months, and the difference in days, right? So if we've got a date, we know the date now, and we know the date that we're looking at, right? So this is like right now, and this is the date that it happens next. If we get the difference in years, months, and days, then we can look at those and we can say like, hey, if the difference in years is greater than 0, like 1 year or more, then we can say like, hey, your appointment is in a year or 2 years. If the difference in years is 0, then we can ask, is the difference in months greater than 0? And if it is, then we can say, hey, your next appointment is in 1 month or 3 months or 4 months, right? And if months is 0, then we can ask, is the difference in days greater than 0, right? Actually, I guess it'll have to be, right? Right? I guess if it was today, well, we'll just stop at days, but we'll just get the difference in days and then say how many days it is, right? So let's give that a try. So now that we've found the date, the next date, now we're going to look at it and ask what the difference is. So let's make a const here and ask ourselves, what is the difference between the year here and the year here? So let's get our, let's just call that y, and we'll say y is equal to, what is it going to be? It's going to be date.get. Actually, date should be larger, so we should do now.get full year, right? There we go, right? So now we'll do now get full year minus date.get full year, right? Because the date's going to happen later, so it's going to be larger. So actually, yeah, I had it right the first time. Sorry. Let's do this now, right? Yeah, that's better. There we go, right? Math is difficult. Let's see. So then let's get the difference in the months. So we'll say date.get month minus now.get month. And then let's get the difference in days. So we'll do D, and we'll say date.get date minus now.get date. And again, there's a few solutions here. You could do a math-based solution where we divide by 86,400 to get the number of days, right? Something like that, and you could get the number of days difference, and then maybe calculate how many months or years are in there. And you could calculate weeks that way too, which might be an interesting way to reply. Your appointment is in 2 weeks or something, right? So, because mine will be a little naive, because if it was the 29th and your appointment was on the 2nd, it's going to say your appointment is in 1 month, which is maybe not as accurate, but let's stick with this for now. So now, instead of just returning the date, let me comment that out. What we'll do is we'll return a string. And our string is going to be dependent on one of these factors here, right? Whether the year is greater, month is greater, or day is greater. So, and again, we'll just do a quick naive answer here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, if year is greater than 0, then I think that your appointment's going to happen in 1 year or more. Okay? So I'll say, hey, your appointment is in years. Okay, this is again like if year is 1, then we should not print the s, right? And we could do that, write a little more code, but just for this challenge problem, let's kind of keep the solution simple, right? But if it's more, and if it was greater than 1 year, then we would want to put the s on the end, right? Okay, so next problem here, right? So now we want to find out if month is greater than 0, right? Because if year is 0, then there might be a difference in months, right? So we'll be in here, and then we can return your appointment is in M months, right? Else, if your appointment is not in years or months difference, it must be days difference. So let's return appointment is in D days. Okay, so let's give that a try and see what happens, right? So I'll clear my console there. And yeah, and let's take a quick look. Actually, let's take a quick look at the whole code here and read through it one more time. So I've got my function next date, takes an array of dates. We'll get now, so that's like right at the moment. We'll order the dates that were passed into us, and we'll copy the array so we don't mutate the, affect anything outside that's using that array. And then we'll loop over all the items in the new dates array. Okay, we'll get a date out of the array, and then we'll ask if that date is greater than now. And if it is, that's the date that we're looking at. Since they're ordered, this one should be the first one, right? That comes next, right? And then what we're going to do is now we want to print out an answer. So we've got the date here, and we could have just returned a solution to the first problem. The second problem is like, hey, let's return a string that says how long in the future, years, months, or days away. So what we'll do is we'll get the difference in the year, the difference in the month, the difference in the date. And then we'll ask if the year is greater than 0, then your X number of years in the future. If the month is greater than 0, your appointment is in X number of months in the future. And if neither of those, then you must be days in the future. Okay, so let's try it now in the console. Oh, it says your appointment is in 1 month. So again, like that's the S on the end, right? But that looks pretty correct, right? So the future date, it should have been this date here, and present was January, and then the future date is February, right? So that's 1 month, essentially, though it's actually really 2 or 3 days, right? So, again, like we could have made a better solution, but this kind of got us in the ballpark. Okay. So anyway, thanks for watching, and that's the solution to problem number 3.